Good afternoon, Madam Chair and councillors. I've come here today as an individual because I believe that the proposal before you is fundamentally flawed and it's anti-democratic. I'm not going to quote Petronius, but I will go back to the American Revolution, which was the forerunner really of our modern democracies, and it's based on two principles, and that is accountability and transparency. And this proposal will mean there will not be accountability and transparency in the community boards. At present, and I'll just take Riccarton Wigram as an example of the community boards, the two city councillors are voted for by all the people living in the community board area. No matter where the two councillors live themselves, they represent the whole of Riccarton Wigram. They are therefore accountable to the whole of Riccarton Wigram who vote them in. The same with the 5 elected community board members. No matter where they come from, they represent the whole area and are answerable to the whole area. The advantage of the present system is that board members are forced to work together irrespective of their political persuasions. They have to work together for the benefit of the whole area because they have to go back to the voters to be re-elected. Under this proposal, let's take Riccarton Wigram again, the people that represent a narrow ward like Riccarton can be outvoted in the community board because 2 of the groups on the community board can join together to outvote the Riccarton councillor and the Riccarton community board members. I believe this will lead to factions. I believe it will lead to this pork barrel politics where there will be backroom deals done. Oh, I'll vote for you, the projects you want. You vote for the projects we want, and we have got the majority, 6 out of 9. And that's not the way I believe a community board should work. Now, I want to make it clear that I am not referring here to the Banks Peninsula situation. I'm referring to the community boards as they exist now. It is, in my opinion, really important that everybody on the community board is accountable to all the people in the whole area, not just to a small part of them. There's another issue with the City Council situation. At present, okay, these boards have 2 councillors. If one is sick, if one is on leave, if one goes AWOL, there's another one that the residents and ratepayers can turn to for assistance and continue working until the other gets back on board. Under the proposed system, you're going to have one councillor working by himself or herself trying to persuade a majority of 15 other councillors to come on board. And I think that's just going to add to the burden that councillors already have trying to get a job done. And I think this is not going to be good. It's really concerned to me too that there's a huge elephant in the room, and that is conflict of interest. Okay, legislation says you can put forward a proposal, but really, unless a person declares categorically that they will not be standing for a community board or the City Council, it makes it really difficult to look at this objectively and dispassionately, in my view. Really, the position of mayor is the only one that isn't affected directly by this proposal. And we have already seen our tabloid media in Christchurch start playing this game of, you know, political fight for life. Oh, these two people are going to square off against each other in such and such a ward, without any of the important issues being addressed, namely democracy and transparency, Madam Mayor. So those are my major concerns. That is that at present we've got a good system working in our community board. The chairperson, the deputy chairperson, they're accountable to everybody in Riccarton Wigram, no matter where they come from and what, you know, political grouping they may espouse. But under this new proposal, that's not going to happen, because the two elected board members for Hallsville or Riccarton or Hornby, they're answerable only to the people who vote them in. And I don't think that's good for democracy.
Maybe let me put it back to you in a different way. So how about we characterise the role of the councillor as representing around the table, with the influence obviously of the area that they come from, but they represent the interests of the city as a whole when they sit around this table. They put aside the you know, the personal issues. Obviously they're well informed because they represent a particular area, but in terms of that overarching role, like for example when we did the long-term plan, we all talked very, you know, carefully about not pushing our own barrows or not pushing a particular issue, but actually thinking of the city as a whole.
I'm aware of that, Madam Mayor, because you take an oath to that effect.
Absolutely.
Yes, but this isn't the same situation as the community board. What you're doing under this proposal is putting what happens, or could happen in theory on the council, now onto the community board. And it's pushing further and further away direct accountability. You're taking it one stage backwards. This is a step backwards.
What about Hallsville, who don't feel that they have a voice? You know, a growing area. It's part of your ward, Riccarton Wigram. You know, I mean, I'm just reflecting on what was said earlier.
Well, there's no more growing area than central Riccarton, Madam Mayor. It has the highest density population in Christchurch.
It does have the highest density population.
And as Councillor Chen has reminded councillors on numerous occasions since February 2011, the population has escalated. And if if anybody doubts this, come for a walk with me and deliver some newsletters in our area and see how many thousands of letterboxes there are simply in the central Riccarton, which is quite a narrow area, quite a small geographic area.
Right.
So, you know.
Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your submission. I was interested if you were in Christchurch when they had the old Riccarton ward and the old Wigram ward. My impression from that time, and I was elected to a community board for the Hagley ward, then joined with Ferrymead, but was that there was a different feeling about local governance. The city was recognised internationally through Bertelsmann as being one of the best governed cities in the world. Local communities felt they had much more accessibility to their community boards and proper resourcing to get things done. But you're kind of painting a different picture of when you have two or three separate wards making up a community board, that it's going to have a negative consequence. And I'm really interested in just understanding, reflecting on where the city has come from as to why that might be the case. Because my impression was previously, when we had smaller wards and more local accountability, that we actually had a better performing city. And if you take, for example, when council went from 24 to 12, the reduction in standing committees, in fact no finance committee, and then you look at some of the issues around loss of consenting, the insurance, etc., etc. So I'm just interested in your views on that, given
Well, obviously I'm much older than you, and I go back to the time when there was a Riccarton Borough Council and a Waimairi County Council, and I challenge anybody in this room to ask people who have lived in those areas at the time. All of them will say things were much better under a Riccarton Borough Council and a Waimairi County Council than under the Greater Christchurch. But if you want to make it, you know, the principle of subsidiarity that's, you know, espoused in the European Union, and that decisions are made at the most local level, then why, if you're going to have 16 wards, why can't you have then 16 community boards? I don't mean a whole bureaucracy going with them, but, you know, they share a bureaucracy with other community boards, and then the decisions would be made at the local level, and you possibly have the best of both worlds, where you had what you're describing, plus, you know, a regional, in this case, Christchurch city system that deals with larger issues rather than the smaller ones.
Raf and then Jimmy.
Yeah, thanks. On that point, so what would you make of a system where the community board members were elected out of their community board areas, so the distinct wards, but the councillors were elected out of the community board area? With that, so you'd actually have the, I guess, the local representation coming out of at the ward level, but the councillors coming out of a wider area.
So you're talking
so let's say you've got
three
6
councillors being elected by the whole of the population.
Yes. No, of the whole of the community board, whereas the community board members being elected out of the individual wards within the community board.
Yeah, well, those 3 councillors then would be accountable to the,
the whole community board area.
Ratepayers. But you've got a situation where you've got 6 people who aren't. So you've got effectively a majority who aren't accountable to the whole area. You know, I think our ward, you know, works well. I think it's really good having a chairperson and a deputy chair who are accountable to everybody, rather than just representing a narrow focus. And they're going to have to represent that narrow focus because they have to go back to the voters in that narrow area to get re-elected. No, this is the problem, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, that's good. Jimmy?
Yeah. Just one question, you know, because currently the gas is like a Richton Wigwam community board and also Richton Wigwam ward. There's a board in the ward is consistent. Yeah. But regarding to the proposed, you know, the community board consists of 3 small wards, but the councillor workload and the community board workload actually still different. And also community board on behalf of local community, but council not only on behalf of local community, but also, you know, to be kind of citywide, to play governance or make a decision, etc. So do you think regarding community board, you know, elected and the council elected, still the same or not? Or you agree, you know, if a community board like a Horsewell area, if they have to focus on Horsewell area, the local issue?
Well, look, in our ward, we've had people elected of different political persuasion. We've had people that are independent, and we've had people that are sort of part of a political grouping, and they have to work together. And we've got a board that some have been elected under a name and others are independent. There are strong people independent. And probably in other wards, even stronger people that are independent, you see. And people have to work together. And that's for the betterment. When, of course, they come to the city council, hey, our 2 city councillors only have to deal with 11 others. Under this system, 1 city councillor's got to deal with 15 others. And I don't think that's practical in the modern world. I mean, this is not just big Dunedin, is it? This is Christchurch under extraordinary circumstances. And I'm really alarmed to read in the New Zealand Herald this morning, and I suggest that you all have a look at this online, where one political party has got tired of people they thought were members of their party voting independently. And they are now going to set up a party in drag with a different name, of course, because they don't want the national brand affected, in order to drive through party policies. And I'm concerned that this could happen here with 16 people, and people working by themselves having to work by themselves. It's going to be dog eat dog here because of the voting system. And I don't think that's good for the city, especially not at community board level.
No, well, that's a very good note to end on. Thank you very much for your interest and also for making the effort to come along and make a submission. I really appreciate it. And now I'd like to invite Sheree.